Great. So hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today, and thanks for taking time out of lunch. The question was, how did I come to write the book? I came to write the book because about 10 years after 9/11, which was a pretty significant historical event for anybody who was around then and who was adult enough to be aware of it. About 10 years later, I was talking to my nephew, who is a little bit older than you guys. And it was right around the anniversary of 9/11, and he was asking me questions about, he kind of said, well, what's the big deal about 9/11? Why do people, seem so somber about it? And I discovered that he didn't really know that much about what had happened that day. And I have friends who are teachers, and I started talking to them, and they said, we don't really talk about 9/11 to kids, and we don't teach them what happened that day. And that seemed strange to me because it was a fairly huge event in the recent history of the United States. It changed our international relations, it put us into 2 wars, it changed the way we travel, it changed our whole view of security and the level of intrusion of the government into our private lives that we will tolerate. All these are fairly significant changes to the way society works, and kids like you who weren't, either around or maybe even born in 2001, weren't being told what had happened that day. So I got to thinking about, and in addition to its historical value, there were a lot of things about that day that were important to talk about in terms of how we shape ourselves as people. How we respond to something terrible and tragic. When something like that happens, you can be confronted with a choice about how you respond, which is you can be sort of sucked down into the blackness of it all, or you can try to find the light. So if you've read the book, you know that there's a moment where the old man tells Alex, you can curse the darkness or light a candle. That's a strong theme for me in the book, and something I wanted to convey about what happened that day. Anyway, I got to thinking about sort of what's the best way to teach this and to tell about it. And I am a screenwriter. I write for the movies. I mostly write for animation. So my first, and we talk about that a little bit if you guys want. But my first impulse was to write a screenplay, because that's what I do. And I wrote it, and it was good, and people really liked it, and nobody wanted to make it, because it was not very commercial. It's not a subject people probably want to go to movies and
so 11 was first a screenplay. I didn't realize that.
It was, cool. And the more I got to thinking about it and talking with people, the more I realized it really wanted to be a book. And it really it made most sense for this to be in schools, and for middle schoolers like you guys. So I sat back down and I kind of reconceived it as a novel and thought about how to use it as a way to both teach about the events of the day, but also tell a story about a boy who basically grows up in the course of a day. And so as you're reading the book, that's something you can kind of track as well, which is, what is Alex like at the beginning of the story? Is he mature or immature? Is he responsible or irresponsible? Is he selfish or generous? And then think about how he changes over the course of that day.
Wow, I think, Tom, you just gave them an essay topic, didn't you?
Easy. Say it again, Lori.
I said I think you just gave them an essay topic right there.
There you go.
Yeah, because they could pick events from all the 3 most important events from the book, and they could track how Alex matures.
Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that was sort of the genesis of the book, and I wrote it, and it took me about 9 months or so to write the book, and another 3 to 6 months to do some editing and really get it worked out, exactly how I wanted it. I tried for a while to publish it through what's called traditional publishing, which is basically New York-based publishing firms. And that was, again, people are very touchy about this topic. They're very nervous about it. It makes them upset to think about it. A lot of people in New York lived through it. So it was a very difficult thing to sell. So I finally just decided to publish it on my own through Amazon, which is what I did. And I hired an artist to create the cover. And we, I can, if you're interested, if you have any artists in the group who want to know about how the cover was designed, I did a blog post for excellent, I'll send you a link. Let me make a note.
Actually, I think I already have that. I put it on, I can share it with the kids.
But it's a little bit about how how we designed the cover and how the cover was trying to capture the sort of the tone and the themes of the book. And I published it this spring and started getting it out by word of mouth to people like you. And when Ms. Key was in Beijing, she had her class read it. In fact, she had the class before last year read it in manuscript form, which was they got a sneak peek at it, which was really fun.
Any questions?
Hi, newcomers. Welcome back from lunch.
Yeah. Bella, you have a question? Yeah, kind of. Here, come here. You can hear. Go up there. You go up the microphone.
What kind of animations did you screencast?
So I've worked for Disney for about 16 years. So I did the most recent things I've done. The things you might know are a couple of the Tinkerbell movies.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I wrote Secret of the Wings, which came out a couple of years ago.
Oh my God, I love that
his sister.
Yeah.
Say it again, I didn't hear.
I love that movie. Me and my sister
good.
watch it all the time.
Well, so I've got another one coming out. Keep your eyes open. I think internationally it starts to be released in December, and it's called The Legend of the Neverbeast. So keep an eye out for that. I'll put posts up on my website too about it and my Facebook page. So if you want to watch, that's coming out soon. So I've done some Tinkerbell stuff. I've done I did a movie called Lion King 1.5, which was a sequel to Lion King, and I did a sequel to The Emperor's New Groove called Krunk's New Groove. I did a Winnie the Pooh movie called Springtime with Rue. I've done a whole bunch of stuff for Disney, and I'm working on a new TV show that hasn't been announced yet, so I can't talk about it yet, but hopefully within the next month you see a brand new TV show coming out from Disney Junior. That's what I'm working on.
Okay, you can once it's out, I'll let the kids know.
Okay, great.
Anybody have a question about 11 or about the writing process?
What were your inspirations behind the characters?
That's a good question. So the inspirations behind the characters, Alex is a combination of me, as I remember being at age 11, which was kind of self-centered. I rode the bus to school. That's something that comes from later in my life. The thing about him being obsessed with airplanes, that I stole straight from the kid of a friend of mine who just grew up obsessed with planes. He literally had a poster of a 747 taped on the ceiling above his bed so he could memorize the cockpit. So that seemed like a good thing to have for a kid in a story about 9/11 and planes. So it's a little mix of everything, but mostly it's just I remember what it was like to be an 11-year-old boy and kind of the world seems big and a little scary. I used to also make deals with the universe all the time. Anybody ever do that? Sit in class and think, don't look at the clock, the time will pass faster. And no matter how often it doesn't work, you can keep trying it.
I remember you saying the last time we talked that you said something about as an 11-year-old kid you wanted to be the hero. You had that kind of and that kind of stuck with my students the last time you talked about that too.
I was obsessed with being a hero because I wasn't a very heroic kid. I was kind of a pudgy kid when I was growing up, and I used to sort of daydream about they always involved girls too. I was always rescuing girls from burning buildings, rescuing girls from car accidents. All these poor girls were just getting beaten up so I could go rescue them. But that was a big thing for me. Was trying to figure out what made you a hero, especially when you're sort of a chubby kid who doesn't have superhero powers. And when I was a little kid, I had a very immature understanding of what it meant to be a hero. a very superficial understanding. I knew that like firefighters and policemen were heroes because they risked their lives, soldiers, and and then fictional heroes like out of the comic books. But as I grew up, I began to understand that there's another kind of heroism, which is the heroism that involves strength of character and having the courage to overcome not monumental obstacles like running into a burning building, but having the courage to be strong for your little sister, like Alex is, or having the courage to be kind to an old man, or having the courage to go home and make dinner and do your chores and be a stand-up guy and take care of things because you're not sure if your dad's going to be able to come home and take care of things himself. And that's a kind of heroism that any of us can tap into. And so that was a really important, thank you for the reminder, Ms. Key.
You can call me Lauren, that's okay.
Okay, I don't know what the kids call you.
That's okay.
That was a really important thing for me to get across in the book, that heroes come in all sizes and you can still be a hero at 11. And so I wanted to make sure that we understood that was an option for Alex.
Cool. Another question here about 11. Anybody else? Yeah. Here, Amy, can you go to the microphone? And you came in a little late, which is totally fine, but can you introduce yourself and just tell us your name?
I'm Amelia, and
Hi, Amelia.
hi. My question for you is, how did you decide for the theme for the story?
It's an excellent question. Some of it I knew from the very beginning. I wanted to write a story about people rising above tragedy. When a tragedy like this happens, you can have two strongly conflicting impulses. One is to latch on to anger and hatred, and the other is to find the goodness in people and find your sort of common humanity and latch onto that. And the conflict between those two impulses, between sort of anger and despair and hopelessness on the one hand, and hope and generosity and kindness on the other, that was a strong theme for me. I think that's something that is a strong theme for me in life. I respond to people who exhibit kindness. I didn't respond to people who try to always aim for the positive. So that was something I wanted to really build into the story. And so that helped drive some of the plot choices, to make sure that those things reinforced the difficulties Alex was facing and then led him to make some decisions that pointed him in a direction that I find appealing. And then sometimes smaller themes appear as you're writing. The whole idea of the whole story of growing up, of him growing from becoming, going from immaturity to maturity, from sort of being a boy to being a man over the course of a day, that was something that began to come out in the writing process. And then once I recognized that that's what was going on, then I went back and rewrote to make sure that I was reinforcing that and building it in the right ways and paying it off in the right ways. So sometimes the theme about magical thinking, that he can make deals with the universe and sort of magically make things happen. That's something that, I kind of put in just as a funny character quirk, like a little funny bit of his personality. But again, I began to realize that sort of is another aspect of growing up, that, you stop thinking magically and you start taking control of your own life and realizing that to a large degree you're in charge of the choices you make. So that journey through that theme was another thing that kind of came up in the process.
Yeah, because Alex really does have like a journey in life through one day, and that's such a really cool thing for you guys to hear. Like, it totally changes in just one day.
And it's also, journey is a good word because he takes a physical journey, obviously. He sort of has this day where he makes his way from school out to a baseball field, through town, out to see the old man, and then all the way eventually back home. And then he's also taking an emotional journey of maturity as well, a figurative journey. And then there's also the man in the white shirt who's taking a journey, making his way home. So journeys are a strong motif in this book.
Any other questions about and some people here haven't read the book, but they just wanted to talk to you about like writing, because we have some big writers in here. A couple of people working on books on their own and writing and things like that.
Wow.
Bella's writing her own book and posting it online and things like that. Any other questions about like writing or writing process, or how long it took to write the book, or or anybody? You have a okay. Can you go up to my book? And then let's put him around. Yeah. Great.
Thank you. It's really hard to hear.
That's okay. Yeah.
How do you get like enough detail in a paragraph without like blabbing on about one specific thing? Because that's what I often have. Because I'm also writing a book, but then suddenly I just start giving too much detail, and it gets really long, and I guess people get bored after a while.
Good point.
Can I just say, guilty. Very, very guilty. The answer is, don't fight it on your first draft. Your first draft should be the draft that's for your eyes only. You don't have to worry about what anybody else thinks. Nobody has to read it. You just barf it out and get it onto the page. And so turn your editor off and just write. Get it all out there and let it be long. If that's how you write normally, then let it be long. Then come back to it. At that point, if you have somebody you trust, you want to get feedback from, or if you want to just give yourself your own feedback, come back at it, maybe put it away for a few days or a week so you're a little bit fresh, and read through it again. And you'd be surprised how quickly you yourself will be able to figure out what's too long and boring, because you'll get bored. And so get out your red pen. This is writer's most important tool, second most important tool. And really be rigorous about, do I need this? And also, here's another technique that really helps. This is something I learned from screenwriting, but it applies to books as well. When I'm writing a scene for a movie, movies are very efficient. There's not a lot of room for, describing the leaves outside the window, right? I mean, it's things happen and they happen quickly. And so when I'm writing a movie and I look at a scene, I always think about, what am I trying to accomplish in this scene? How does the story change? And then I look at, am I coming into the scene way too early? Like, what's the latest I can come in? And what's the earliest I can get out of it and get the job done? Because usually that kind of rigorous efficiency is more dramatic and more effective. You don't get bogged down. And if you, to some degree, apply the same technique to your novel writing, it can really help. Look at each chapter and think, what is this chapter trying to accomplish? Where does my character start at the beginning of the chapter? Where do I want them to end? And there better be a change there. There better be some change in their circumstance or their attitude or their choices. And then, with that in mind, knowing that that's the purpose of your chapter, then go through and look and think, is this serving my dramatic purpose? Is this doing what I want it to do? And then, after you've done a pass, give it to somebody you trust. I gave it to, my book was edited by my book agent. And my original manuscript was 265 pages. and when she was done, it was 180.
Wow.
Oh my god.
And
So
you
we cut a third of the book in manuscript, and it was vastly improved by the cuts. But if I should have pulled up the pages she sent me. Basically, it's pages.
that look like that.
The pages look like that.
Right. Slash and burn editing, huh?
Giant big red flashes, because it was, and like I said, all that stuff is fine for a first draft. You're just trying to get your thoughts down on the page. There's no sin anywhere in your first draft. There's no sin in writing long or not getting it right. You just got to get it down on the page and then go through it and then be tough on yourself.
And Tom, I hate to stop now, but we almost have to go because
Yes, I know, it's such a short
class. I know, but we'll see. We can see. Would you like to continue this more?
Yes.
You guys want to have more chat? Well, maybe we can try to set up something. I don't know. Sometime soon, we'll email back and forth. But once the word gets out how cool you are, I bet we can have more people coming in. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, go tell your friends.
Yeah. That's good. So, but unfortunately, we have class because I think all of us would like to skip next class to sit here and talk to.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
We have
But
PE home next.
okay, I know. But I gotta teach class also. So we do have to go, Tom. But
That's no problem.
But yeah, I mean, you'd be okay if we set up another one. You can
Absolutely.
do
This is easy for me because this is evening, so I'm home and it's the
Chilling
simplest thing in
out.
the world.
Okay, cool. Can everybody give Tom a big hand, please?
Thank you very much.